Hey everybody, and welcome to the Startup Savant podcast. I'm your host, Ethan, and this show is about the stories, challenges, and triumphs of fast-scaling startups and the founders who run them. Our guest on the show today is Adrian Fagerlund. Adrian is a co-founder of Linkby, a two-sided marketplace for advertisers and premium publishers like BuzzFeed, Refinery29, and Forbes. Adrian and his two co-founders bring a ton of experience from their collective startup history, including PedestrianTV, Australia's largest youth-focused publishing company, which sold in 2018. There is a ton more to say about Adrian and the team, but I'm going to let him do the talking because I'm pretty sure he tells it better than I do. But before we jump in, make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast wherever you're listening from. That helps us to feed the algorithm and gets us in front of more cool folks just like you. All right, enough preamble. Let's get into it. Adrian, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Ethan. Thanks so much for having me today and chatting. I'm really excited.
Thanks for coming on. This is going to be an awesome talk. So let's start right at the beginning. Can you tell us what is Linkby?
You said it. It's a two-sided marketplace for advertisers and for premium publishers around the globe. So basically, if you want to work with premium publishers of the highest caliber, traditionally that usually was pretty complex, especially on a global scale. Now we built a platform which is a one-stop shop where any form of advertisers can choose their publishers, choose their budget, choose their where they want to run their content, provide a little bit of a brief, and then each individual publisher will then expertly create that article for that brand. And you can buy that on both a CPC, which is cost per click basis, so which mirrors how you work with, say, Meta and Google. And now recently, you can also buy it on a CPB basis if you're a brand advertiser, really want to make a bang across hundreds of premium publishers at the same time.
What's a CPV? Is that cost per view?
Correct.
All right.
Yep.
Cool.
I'm drowning in abbreviations, so I need to be careful.
It's all good. It's all good. We're just going to, every once in a while, I might poke my head in and say, what the heck is that?
Yeah, for that.
All right. What is the problem that Linkby is solving that was not solved before?
The original problem we were sent out to solve was the fact that, don't quote me on these stats, but let's say 90 cents to every dollar of advertising dollars is spent across platforms like Meta, Facebook, Instagram, and Google. And for publishers, they traditionally used to work with a lot of blue chip clients with big budgets, long turnarounds. So what we wanted to do is to create a way for advertisers, no matter what the size of the advertiser, and similarly easy way to work with premium publishing. So that's what we set up originally to do. And that's how we started our first core product, which is the CPC, cost per click based product, where again, you just create a brief, you set that budget, you set the CPC yourself, and then choose the publishers, and you're off to the races of having dedicated content on some of the most desired publishers in the world. And then as we've moved into more products, we now, again, I'm repeating myself, but we are offering a CPB product, cost per view, which again suits any type of advertisers that wants to quickly and on scale and measurably work with premium publishers.
So these advertisers out there, are these like online stores, or are they who are these advertisers that are trying to work with these publishers?
I'd say predominantly it's D2C advertisers, direct to consumer advertisers. So I think our biggest segments are beauty products, for example. We work with everybody from Nivea down to challenging brands that are built in someone's home during COVID, for example, and now they're getting serious. They're seeing sales and they want to be talked about, like about Vogue and Harper's Bazaar and InStyle and publishers like that. We can facilitate for them. Then we have categories like health is a big one for us. Home is another big one. We even work with categories that are blocked from working with channels like Meta and Google, such as CBD-based products in America, even THC-based products, sexual wellness, which has a hard time on Meta and the like. We can welcome them and help them facilitate really hard-hitting content, and which is at the core performance-based, similar to, again, Meta and Google. So it's opened up a new door to those kind of categories as well. But I'd say our biggest are beauty, home, tech, and fashion. It's probably our biggest categories.
Gotcha. And so these folks are, I'm assuming that the main reason that they're trying to get these articles or a name mention or something like that on these larger brands is to get people to click over and make a purchase. Is that the main reason, or is there anything on the side that you think is a benefit that these advertisers are looking for?
Great question, Ethan. It comes down to, if you're going to go all the way back to marketing 101, if you look at the marketing funnel, the top layer is awareness, which traditionally was where the publishers play. So you get talked about a publisher. There's not a action required on the end of it. It's really about building the name of the brand, building the buzz, if you will. We do that on true scale, but with the kicker of also playing in the lowest part of the marketing funnel, which is conversion. Because of the CPC model, the cost per click model, the only cost to the advertiser is when someone has gone to their favorite publisher, discovered an article dedicated about the brand, why the publisher loves the brand, and what sets them apart from their competition. And it's only if they still then are so interested that they're willing to leave their favorite publisher's site and go into the brand site, wherever they want to drive them, that's the only time the CPC is triggered, and it's just a cost to the advertiser. So it really changes the game in the sense that brands can build recognizability. Brand trust is another thing. It's a jungle out there with advertisers that can very easily advertise on all these channels that we've been discussing, but what sets them apart? A premium publisher won't accept a brief about some what do you call them? Be here one day and be gone the next day kind of brand. We still help these brands to really lift out what sets them apart, what their passion is, how they're changing the world, so to speak. And then the publishers choose what to write about, how to write about it as well, to be as appealing to their audience as possible. And in effect, they're building their awareness on mass, and they're building the brand trust, because unlike an ad, it's not the brand itself saying, hey, look how amazing we are, we do all these fantastic things. It is now one of the most trusted voices there are, these premium publishing editors that people actively seek out for their advice, telling them why they're in love with this brand or why you should seek it out. So you're building the brand awareness on mass scale, you're building the brand trust, you're setting yourself apart from social brands, so to speak. And what we tend to see to happen is that the expression is the tide raises all ships, which means once you start being talked about all these premium publishers around the world, when you then retarget your audience on the performance channels, you're now that brand that everybody's talking about. So it has possibly a flow over effect. And there's things like SEO and things like that's a nice flow effect as well. It's not the core of what we do, but it sure helps to be talked about by every publisher in the world. And they know what they're doing when it comes to SEO. So that's, again, a nice flow over effect as well.
So what role does Linkby play in this relationship? Is it just the marketplace where the advertiser is introduced to the publisher, or it sounds like maybe there's a bit more hands-on working with these advertisers and maybe with the publishers as well? What's the role that you guys play in that?
I'm loving these questions, Ethan. Very, very insightful. Yes, there's more to it. So the platform, it facilitates the relationship, right? So you don't need to speak to each individual publisher. You don't need a credit line. You don't need to speak to a sales team. You use our platform. But then behind closed doors, so to speak, that's where my team and where we really do our hard work, which is we help the brands sometimes from get-go. What is a brief? How do you write a brief? Some of these brands are brand new into content creation. Some of them know exactly what we do. We work with affiliate networks and media agencies of the highest caliber, but we still help there in terms of perfecting the Linkby brief. Every single brief that gets submitted gets reviewed by our content team. We want to make sure that we help brands send the best possible brief straight to the publisher. So we review there. We always work with the brands to get the most out of the brief from that stage. Then we have a dedicated publishing team, a global team based in New York, but in every market that we're in, that also helps the publishers get the most out of it. It involves speaking to them on a daily basis, working with what briefs is on the platform, helping them get anything that they're missing before they start the process of creating the content. So yes, you guessed it. There's a lot going on behind the scenes with this, which is all, the human touch, if you will, because at the end of the day, it's content, it's creative, it needs to work. It can't just be copy pasted and popped into ChatGPT just yet.
Not quite yet. We're almost there. Not quite yet.
No. So we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes, to your point, exactly.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about your team here in a little while, but I'm curious what percentage of your team is working on the tech side, building out that marketplace and the feature set and that sort of thing, versus for lack of a better term, let's call them like the content side. What percentage of your team is working that content side?
Yeah, great question. We have a few silos. We have a few specialists here and there, but the bulk of it is tech, sales, and publishing.
Okay.
So the tech team is the core of what we do. So the third co-founder, Andrew, he leads our tech team. He's our CTO. We got him in from day one. I recommend doing tech in-house. Everybody hears it all the time. It is true what they say. We have a relationship with Andrew where Chris, the other co-founder, and I will dream something on a Friday, and him and his team will build it on a Monday. It is extremely liberating and creative and advantageous to do it that way. So I really hang my hat on that. That's something that's very fantastic. And we're really scaling up the tech team. We have, I forget the number now, but it's far beyond 15, where we have specialists of all kinds. They sit all over the globe. We are so spoiled because we can literally, because we're global, we can hire the best talent wherever they are on the planet Earth, which has enabled Andrew to build this incredible team where, again, we dream it and they build it. So it's a significant part of the business, but I don't know percentage-wise. It's probably around 20%. And the idea there is that we're scaling that aggressively with anything from AI people to data learning to data scientists and so forth. The idea there is really to arm the publishers, because again, if you look at publishing as a whole, the true competitor of say a publisher these days is not necessarily another publisher. It is Meta and Google, that both, and all those ones that have skyscrapers of engineers and tech specialists that are working night and day. What we want to do is build something similar and then give that to the publisher to help utilize. So our overall vision is really to build a suite of products that makes publishers competitive to those people, to those companies, and also has the ability to do really cool stuff within the tech space, as publishing has a little bit of legacy where they need to keep the lights on and keep their journalistic integrity and in check too, which has to this point meant a lot of ads and all of these things that you see on publishing sites. Our ambition, coming from publishing originally ourselves, is really to give publishers that tech and those tools to do exactly what they do best, which is create great content for their audience and keep the lights on at the same time. That's the overall vision.
That makes sense to me. So you mentioned one of the three co-founders.
Correct.
Whenever you three get into a room, what's the dynamic like? Is it all three of you kind of have an equal voice, or is it dependent on what you're talking about? What's the dynamic like when all three of you are in a room making a decision?
Yeah, so the godfather of the business is Chris, the other co-founder. So his claim to fame is he started, like you said in the intro, Australia's biggest youth publishing group when he was 21 years old, and then sold that later, 15 years later. While by then they were running titles like Vice and Refinery 29 and Pop Sugar and a few other ones under their umbrella. And they sold it to a record-breaking sale here in Australia to the biggest TV network here called Channel 9. So Chris is, again, the godfather of the operation. It was his original idea. I used to work with him at PedestrianTV. He pinged me and he said, I got an idea. Do you think it has legs? It was pretty clear from the beginning that was true. We started working on behind the scenes, and then we got Andrew on board because, again, he had helped us build the original model of the idea. And we're just like, this guy is incredible. We need to get him on board. So in the dynamicness of it is Chris has the final say, and I cannot be more comfortable with that. He is the smartest man I've ever met in my life, no cap. And he steers the ship. I obviously come with all the insights of the day-to-day because I'm on the ground. I work with the team all kinds of hours of the day. So I add a lot of insight, what's going on, and then we brainstorm what we should be doing. And then we do not touch tech. That is Andrew. He is the first, the second, and the third chief of all things tech. So the dynamic, in my opinion, is extremely clear, and it's very efficient, and it produces a lot of results. We have a very nice dynamic, the three of us. And yeah, I'm a bit, I brew and drink the Kool-Aid, but I can hand on heart say that's truth.
So you and Chris met when you were working at PedestrianTV. Where did you all meet Andrew?
So Andrew, we outsourced the build of our first prototype. And Andrew was running an agency that did that. They specialized in helping startups get off the ground with their ideas. And then when we saw his work and when we got to talking to him and meeting him, and he's a fantastic guy, we were like, we need to act on that. And we offered him the third co-founder seat and got him on board. So he stopped doing what he was doing and came on board full time with us.
Whenever you guys get into a situation where you don't all necessarily see eye to eye, or you would solve a problem, maybe even getting to the same solution, but getting there, in a different way, how do you all settle the differences when it comes to making decisions?
Personally, again, it's going to sound a bit funny, but with Chris, the CEO, Chris, the original founder, so to speak, he is much smarter than I am. There's no debate about that. So when we do have a difference of opinion, what it normally does, and this is the mature Adrian speaking, is I go away and I try to find how he got there. And 99.9%, that's the right way to get there. So I learned a lot from him. So I've learned to, bite my tongue sometimes and then go away, process the information he's given me. And time again, it turns out he was right. So I guess it works that way. And again, with Andrew, we can't tell him what is black and what is white. He knows that, we do not. We don't have the tech competency and the incredible insight that he has in all things tech. So it would be a silly process for us to argue about anything tech related. It might be a look and feel thing that we sometimes discuss, and we then we want to use this type of look and feel on the new site or something. But then what we'll do is we'll turn to the team, do a bit of a poll, and then diplomatically come to the right answer.
This might be a little bit of an off the wall question, but you've got 3 co-founders now. If you had to add a fourth, if you had to have 4, just random number 4 co-founders, you've got the executive right now, you've got your sales and revenue and on the ground skills, you've got the tech skills. Who would be the number 4? Not necessarily a person or a name, but what would their skill set be?
That's a really good question. I don't have an answer for, because I think that the holy trinity of the 3 of us, we cover those core pillars of what you just said. Is there another pillar? I actually don't know, Ethan. I don't know. I'm going to go away and think about that one, but I don't have an answer to that because, again, I'm slightly intoxicated on our own Kool-Aid, but no, I can't actually think of an answer for that.
3 is a magical number,
right?
So I'll jump with you on this one. That works for me.
Yeah, no, thanks. I'm actually gonna go back to the founder team and see what they say on that answer. I'm actually gonna
Sweet.
That's a fun question.
I'm glad we got you thinking. That's what counts.
Yeah.
So then let's talk about the the fourth arm that you already have, and that's the team. The rest of the folks that you've got on the ground doing the work. And you also mentioned that your team is global.
Right.
What was I'm assuming that this was a product in Australia first before it went anywhere else. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. This is where we are, me, Chris, and Andrew, in terms of where we're based. And this is where, we cut our teeth in publishing before. So we leveraged that to get in the door. Again, being a new tech platform, the initial reactions when no one has ever heard of you is usually not always positive. So we started really banging on doors and breaking them down and getting in meetings, showing our vision, and then getting a few of the Australian publishers on board. Then onboarding the brands wasn't too difficult because it is a pretty appealing offer for brands. But to your point, then we got some wins there. And then we're just like, okay, let's see if this is a global problem or if this is an Australian problem we're solving. And it turns out, then we went to the UK, then we went to the US, then we went to Singapore, now we're in Canada, Malaysia as well, with more markets coming. So yeah, our hypothesis was correct. It wasn't only an Australian problem. We're solving something globally, which is again obviously very exciting. Yeah,
that's a lot of geos that you're in.
Only getting started.
What
world domination is definitely on the vision board.
We're just waiting for King Adrian to tell us what to do out here.
That's right.
So when you I'm assuming you solved the problem fully and you hired the team fully in Australia before you started jumping into other geos. Is that accurate? Or do you feel like you got, a certain percentage of the way there and then you said, hey, I wonder if this also works in, you said, I think the UK second?
Correct. Yeah, no, we're definitely not fully mature anywhere. We had taken a big bite out of the publishing game in Australia before we moved globally, but nothing too crazy. We're still working on that. We now work with pretty much who's who in the zoo in an Australian market, with the biggest and down to some of the smallest ones and everything in between. But then the second advancement, so to speak, is our product offering. Australia, like many brands know, is a fantastic testing market. And we can do things here isolated and test before we take them global. So we're really leveraging that. So now our second, third, and fourth product are all been tested and rolled out fully in Australia. And now we're starting to do that globally as well, knowing very well that, hey, we're solving some demands and some problems here as well within these products. So it's a fantastic way to work, very advantageous. So test in Australia, make sure it has legs, and then adjust for some cultural nuance, sure, but nothing too crazy. But then when it goes to the UK and it starts blooming there, and then North America, Canada, and the US, biggest market for this game in the world, right? So once we get there and it gets fully rolled out, it's exciting things happen.
So you mentioned that Australia is a good test market. What makes Australia a good test market?
I don't know. It's like a little piece of land away from everything. I remember we studied in uni. I think it was Coca-Cola that released some odd offshoot of a flavor, and it just bombed in Australia. And instead of spending trillions of dollars doing it globally, they're like, okay, this is a good representation of what this type of world would react to this product. It's kind of that. Like, it's isolated. It's far away from everything. If you really, put your foot in it here, it's not a big chance it's going to spread and contaminate elsewhere. So I just think Australia brands do this all the time. They test here, and if it works, they roll it out. And we are so lucky because we're based here. So we're very close to the ground here. So we can test something, see, like I said, see if it works. And then once it's all nice and ready and we know where the kinks need to be ironed out, and we can just do that before we can go global with it and it's maturity and its full capacity, so to speak.
So for other companies that are looking for places to test, let's say a company is based in Silicon Valley. They're definitely not Coca-Cola. They don't have the brand. They don't have the money to do all that. I mean, and then on the other side of that, you've got companies like Linkby that are already in Australia. So it totally makes sense to test there. Do you think that Australia would be a great testing place for smaller companies that aren't located in Australia? Or do you think that they should try the product in their backyard first?
Oof. That's probably don't listen to me in my answer on this one, because I'm definitely not an expert of that. I think if it's a tech product and it's something that is not involves shipping, then yes, I think that could be an effective way of doing a test without, again, starting the buzz where you are ultimately aiming to take over, so to speak. But if there's shipping involved and products involved, then definitely don't do that. It's hard to ship here. It's costly. A lot of Australian brands spend a lot of money, time, and effort when they go global, and we help with that as well. But there's some hurdles there you need to jump through. And importing here, there's some definite hurdles there as well. So it depends on who you are and what you're trying to achieve. But if you have a fully mobile solution, so to speak, not you don't have physical things going on, then yeah, why not? I don't know the legalities around it either. We're fortunate because we're all Australian citizens, and we get grants from the Australian government. We're doing things internationally. There's a lot of good stuff like that happens. Again, not my expertise, so don't dig too deep, Ethan. But I know that's happened, and it's something that's ongoing as well.
I think you got me picked out. I like to dig. All right. So expanding globally, you mentioned briefly that when you went into these other geos, that there was a little bit of tweaking or a little bit of, changing things that you had to do, I'm assuming to match the market that was there. What were some of those things that you've had to change in every different geo that you end up in?
Yeah, it might be, from my world, and it might be a slightly different answer from, say, the tech team and Andrew, but from my world, one, obvious things like you need to be able to cater for the currency in that market, and you need to then reestablish a completely new set of relationships with the local publishers. Then the more nuanced things are, how does agencies and brands work in that market? Who rules the affiliate space in that market? What type of content is standardized in that specific market? How can we match that or, transcend that? So there's day-to-day nuances like that. Then I find it quite, because I get the privilege of going to all these markets and working with clients and publishers, and there's definitely nuances on, say, how an average Australian person approaches work and a meeting and the tonality of it and how fast-paced it is in London, obviously New York as well, but then you go up to Toronto and it's much more like, slow moving. And then you go to Asia and Singapore and Malaysia, and it's a whole different kettle of fish on how business is done. So for me, that's definitely top of mind when it comes to just conducting day-to-day business and then learning to, adapting to, and excelling at dancing that global dance in each individual market, which is one of my absolute favorite hobbies there is. So it's very well suited to me. But sometimes when we do international conferences and stuff like that, we need to work with the team to really show them the ropes, especially if we have, like, say, a UK person going to Asia or vice versa. There needs to be training around that stuff, which I, again, very much enjoy. So it's a nuanced thing.
And I know that about you, that you like to travel. It seems like every time we talked before this call, you were in a different country, and I was like, does this guy ever sleep, or is he just everywhere?
Not much is the answer, especially not lately. This year alone has been nuts. I just came back from Bali. I was in Malaysia. I've been in Toronto, London, New York, LA, Vegas. Yeah, it's been a year so far, and we're only getting started.
Right,
so
we're in April.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope you've got that frequent flyer card nice and filled out.
Yes, best thing ever. Half of the flights are for free because I fly so much. It's fantastic.
All right, so when you're going to these brand new geos that you don't have anything in yet, it sounds like you are going there and you are boots on the ground, and maybe you're speaking to the different publishers and advertisers. Is that where you get all of your research from, is these face-to-face meetings, or is there other research that you are doing about the specific areas and countries and peoples before you fly out there?
Yeah, so the methodology to date has really been to find a superstar in that market initially. So we'll interview again. It's all done over video calls, so we can scale. We put out ads, we put out our feelers. We actually hired a few old PedestrianTV employees that we used to work with that are absolute superstars. So the woman that leads the UK market for us, her name is Kate. Can't speak warmly enough about her. She's an absolute superstar. She's spent a lot of time. She's half British, so she spent a lot of time in London. She worked at the Daily Mail. She worked at the Guardian. So she had a lot of cultural insight in terms of what's required from the publishing side. We have a local guy in the North America as well that had the same setup. And we hired a guy in Singapore who is very, very connected in all over Asia. So then it becomes them and I hit the market together in a way. They do the grunt work. I'm not taking away from that. They're amazing. But then I come out, especially in the initial stages, to, again, pound the pavement, set up meetings on both sides of the fence, and just go hard. And yeah, that's a lot of the reason why I travel so much as well. But now I go a lot to, New York and Toronto and London, where we have our biggest hubs for our teams to just be with the team, do training, spend time with their cultural things that we do with the company, which is very fun. So yeah, that's what leads to that. But the formula is set up a lean team that are experts in their own market, and then add me sometimes into that mix and go and hit the market really hard from the beginning, get the ball rolling, and then it just becomes that snowball effect, because once the biggest publishers come on, the smaller or similar ones want to come on as well. And once some of the publishers are on, we just demonstrate to the local brands that, hey, are you advertising in your local market and want a better methodology of doing that? And in best case scenario, do you want to go global? Are you global? We can very, very easily facilitate content for you on a global scale, and there's nothing else in the market that can do that. So it's a fairly easy conversation on that side of the fence for us.
So you've given me a lot of different directions to go here, and I appreciate that because I think we're going to try to hit them all.
Right.
How are you deciding on a new geo before you go out and hire that superstar, before you get on a plane? How are you saying, okay, this is the place where we want to go next?
Yeah, initially it was what's the best and brightest and biggest, meaning the UK was a pretty easy choice. US, of course, like who wouldn't want to be part of the US market and the trillions of dollars that exist within that market. But then it became a demand thing as well. So Southeast Asia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indo, all those type countries, it's also very ripe for opportunity. The publishing game is hungry there as well. And then now it's become this thing where we strategically plan, European markets. We might go into the Middle East. There's other parts of Asia that we're looking at, and so on. But now it's become a little bit of a demand thing as well. So we work with our global brands, and they're like, "Oh, are you guys here yet? Are you planning to move here?" And we keep notes of that. And then we get in a room and we strategically plan what is technically possible. So there's some markets that have, like the one that comes to payment and stuff, they are a little bit behind. So we're going to wait for them to catch up. There's a language barrier as well. We have a few French Canadian publishers and a couple other publishers that write in a different language. Now we're getting local ones in Malaysia, for example. And we are working with the tech team and with building a team that can help facilitate that. So that's kept us away from non-primarily English-speaking countries up to this point, but we're crossing that line this year. So there's a little things like that, but I'd say, where's the ripest opportunity? And that's based on, again, feedback from clients, but also what we know. We know that, hey, Germany is a pretty lucrative market with a lot going on. That's on our radar, so to speak.
So, okay, so you've got lots of people saying, hey, are you going to be here yet? Then you've got other ways that you're finding these places. Let's go back and talk about your superstars. How are you finding these people? I know you said that some of them came from the previous business that you ran. Are most of them folks that you know or people that are referred to you, or are there other methods of finding these superstars on the ground?
It's such a luxury to be able to hire someone who you have worked with because, everybody's good in a meeting. Most people are good in a meeting, and CVs can be real nice and fancy. But when you've actually worked with someone, so even to expand on that, so now we have the publishing lead who now lives in New York. She's from Australia. She's worked with Chris, the other co-founder, previously for years and years. They work extremely well together. She's amazing. Pete, who heads up Australia, is also a guy I hired for PedestrianTV. When he was a little junior burger. Caitlin, again, from Pedestrian, and there's a few other ones in the team that also come from that. And then that's kind of the ground layer, I think, initially how we started. And then through referral-based hiring, so these people knowing other people in market through their career. And then as of late, because we're growing in such a rapid rate, we've done, straight up advertising, I guess you call it. And then it becomes a screening process. So really finding this talent all over the world through this new normal of not actually seeing them in real life.
Right.
Some of the people that we work with today, there's a couple left I haven't even met yet, especially in the tech team, which is bizarre when you think about it. We worked with more than a year together, I've never physically met. So it's definitely a new normal out there. But yeah, people that we knew initially, mix of referral-based hiring and scouting for, top-tier talent is how we built the team.
How do you pick out that top tier talent? How do you know? I mean, just like what you said, CVs can look really good. People can be excellent interviewers, and then, not turn out to be anything that your company needs or is looking for. So how do you know when you have somebody who is going to be everything that you thought they were and more?
Can you really always? I'm not sure, but there's definitely things you could do to hedge your bet, so to speak. I personally, so we have a process where there's a few interviews and also a test. Again, it kind of caters to this new normal of all being on video. But when it comes to when someone has been interviewed by their local person and then they eventually get to me, I am a people person. Sounds like a cliche to say, but I do say that that's kind of what I do. I speak to people and I read people and I try to form relationships very quickly with people. It's good old sales. But I applied that method to an interview as well, throw in a curveball there and here and there, and really try to find out who that person is at a core. Because again, our products are pretty simple to learn about. They're pretty straightforward. You don't need to be a tech specialist unless you're in the tech team, of course. So I hire on vibes, which sounds fun when you say it out loud, but I really try to find people that there's a nice fit to the dynamic of the team that we built. And then if they have experience within the fields, then especially the specialist roles, within publishing and within content creation and, maybe in a startup experience, there's certain points you can connect over that help that journey. But that said, as an example, we have one guy in the North American team. He used to be a bartender before he started working with us, and he now is smashing it. And I kind of got this feel when we were interviewing that this kid gets it. He's got a little bit of a steep learning curve in the initial couple of months, which turned out to be true. But once he got his head around it, he is, cooking with fire already. So I don't gatekeep, so to speak. I just try to find people, throw them a few curveballs, do test them as well. Like we have a physical test, a 2-hour test that people get to do to get them an idea of, what are you actually doing when you do the work that we will require you to do?
What's in the test? What's in the test?
It's an evolving organism, to be honest, especially depending on the role. But I think to overcome that, like what you said, Ethan, is you can talk a good game, you can polish up a CV till the cows come home. But sometimes we have done that test and you're like, oh, if you're half of what you just said you would have smashed this question and this answer and this creative task or whatever it might be out of the ballpark. But turns out, and then you go back to another interview and you start interrogating a little bit, and then sometimes that story falls apart a little bit. So that's really the purpose of the test, to just put your mouth where your money's at, kind of thing.
So this test is out, it's kind of in between 2 rounds of interviews. Is that correct?
The final stage, really. Okay. Unless the test is not as good as we want it to be.
Gotcha. And is it kind of like a, obviously it's different. It's different for each role. And it sounds like it's evolving, but is it like I don't know, if it were pieces of paper, which I'm sure it's not actual physical pieces of paper, would it be like a packet? I mean, are we talking like a math quiz? Like here, your teacher hands you a quiz, or is this like more like a scavenger hunt of like, hey, show us what you can do. Go out and find all this stuff. I mean, what do we, you got to give me some insight on this thing. I'll give you one
example. It's not indicative to the whole test, but one example is, because one of the things that we do, similar to what I was saying in the beginning, is we help these brands create briefs, which sometimes for them, especially if they're a young brand, it can be intimidating.
Yeah.
It's not about writing a full press release. It's about finding an angle to a brief to hero your product, right? Whatever you got going on. So one of the test questions is, here's a link to 3 different brands. They're D2C brands that are either on the platform already or likely to work with us. Can you write 3 headlines that we know would get a lot of engagement from the publishers? So instead of saying something like, oh, this jewelry brand has a 20% off sale, then they might come up with a headline that's, this sustainable jewelry brand from Australia uses recycled ocean plastic so you can look fancy and save the world at the same time. Just by doing that, you're like, oh, this person has a concept of creative content writing. That's a leg up, right? They might not perform perfectly on that, but then comes the next question, which is about, I can't even think of one right now, but let's say it covers like, sales methodology of how you transcend someone with a cold email, and they smash that, but they don't have the creativeness. At least we as the employer then knows that, okay, this person is really strong over here, lacking a little bit over here. We can then work with them to make them a full superstar, but we're going to need 2 months extra, blah, blah, blah. So it comes into the strategy of hiring in the way that we sample test the areas of where we kind of wish they are as competent as they say they are, if you will.
So this isn't just really a test to see, are you good enough or not, as a very black and white thing. It's more like you're like kind of building a snapshot of this person and their skills and saying, hey, you're strong here, you're weak here, but that's great, we can teach here. Or you're strong here and you're weak here, but we really wish you were strong over here. That sounds like a pretty darn good strategy to me.
Yeah, and I like it. it's nothing crazy. It's not like Google's 745 rounds of testing and IQ tests and Rorschach tests and all that. It's definitely not that. It's a quick couple of hours at most that they do on their own time and send it to us. And to your point, Ethan, that's exactly what we do with it. We do a SWOT analysis of the candidate.
All right, and I'm not going to make you answer what's a SWOT analysis. If anybody wants to know what a SWOT analysis is, go Google it. There's a lot to be gained from that. Just go check it out. SWOT. All right, Adrian, I'm going to move in to my favorite question in all of these questions, and that is, what is your number one piece of advice for early stage entrepreneurs?
Oh, when you're about to say something, it's like a cliche of all cliches.
I love cliches.
I best think that most things are cliches because they are true, I guess.
Absolutely.
And it's the people, right? So it's back to speaking about Andrew and Chris. That's what makes this company. That is the foundation, the legs of this whole company. Without Chris, without Andrew, this would never have worked. So I think having a real think early on, who am I as a founder? What do I possess in my skill set and my network and whatever nuance that you need for a successful business to work? And then be self-critical in a way and to go, who do I need to make this work? And be selfish in the sense that don't settle for something that might work. In my opinion, don't pull the trigger until you're confident that you have the right team assembled. And then that kind of drips down as well, because when it comes to building the team, again, say cliches, so many cliches, is that you want to build a team that can carry that vision and that passion, I want to say as well, because that's truly something that is a ingredient in startup world that is required. You can go and be a superstar at a big blue chip company in a skyscraper somewhere and you'll be perfectly fine without a lot of passion. But I think it is very clear with our superstars and our leaders and our team that the people that really excel have that level of passion that they really want to make a dent into what we're doing and be part of this journey. And we as founders, just expanding on that, make sure that happens through such things as we have a global bonus structure, which means that if we win, everybody wins. We also have an ESOP program, which stands for Employment Stock Option Program. So back to your previous question, who's the fourth co-founder? It's our team. Is the answer to that, because they all own a small piece of the company. So when we go to raise, when we get higher valuation and stuff, that means good things for everybody involved. So that in itself leads to more passion. So the answer to your original question is it's all about the team.
You know what, cliche or not, I like that answer. So we're going to take it. All right. So moving into the end here, can you tell us what's next for Linkby? Do you have anything awesome on the horizon? I'm sure you're going to enter into 17 or 18 more geos in the next week or so. But do you got anything else going on for us?
Yeah, I kind of hinted it in the beginning, but we're very excited about our new product that opens up our platform to any type of advertiser, performance, brand, whatever you got going on, we can cater for that now. And we're rolling that out globally now after testing it in Australia and for a very successful test, which is super exciting. That's definitely the highest priority right now. To your point, Ethan, we are keep on expanding globally into new markets. We are all over the world. So if anyone listening is around the conferences, whether it's PI Live or Affiliate Summit, or I forget all the names, we're always there. And establishing networks and speaking. I've done a lot of speaking lately, which is super exciting as well. So we're just expanding slowly and surely by also not forgetting to focus on perfecting what's already there. I think that sometimes it's a trap. You get so excited that you sort of push and do new things, but you forget to perfect what's already there. There's a lot of work this year on the roadmap as well of just fine tuning the UX on the side, the UX for the publisher, the UX for the brands, new functionality, a more effective way of doing X, Y, Z internally. So we're really focusing this year, as well as expanding it and adding to our remit. We're also working very hard at perfecting what's already there.
You got a lot of things going on. It sounds like a lot of work, but you know what? It sounds like you're having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah. Again, cliche warning. I do once it's your own thing, any founder can probably relate to this. Once it's your own thing, my drug is progress. That's what I'm truly addicted to. And when you work in this highly dynamic way of, always pushing forward, working with these superstar teams, every day is a new challenge. It might even be a new country or a new market. Everything's always new and it's moving forward. Nothing gets stale. Nothing gets boring. I never feel like, here I go to work again, because that dynamicness, the progression, the constant progression is so addictive and so fun and so exciting that, I think, that's what I want to say with that. Progression is key.
I can hear the passion coming off you, and that's awesome. We've got one more question, and then I'll let you get back to the fun part of your day. Actually, we talked. It's like 6 a.m. where you are, and that's a little early for me. But I'm glad you can do it. So,
we're a morning persons. I like it.
There you go. All right, last question. Where can people connect with you online, and how can our listeners support Linkby?
Yeah, so we made it as simple as possible. You simply go to linkby.com, Linkby, and you go and sign up as a brand. It takes 2 seconds. There's no cost involved, and you're ready to go. You can request a demo from the team. Whatever market you're in, you'll get a local rep who will demo the team, answer any questions, work with your first brief if you wanted to pull the trigger really fast. And also for anyone listening, please mention this podcast, and we will provide our creative services, meaning we'll help you from step 1 to step finished, and we'll help you work with your whatever message you got and create your brief for you. Just mention to when you reach out that you listen to this podcast, and those creative services are for free. So come and have a chat. I think the opportunity cost of finding out more about how it works, if you are into thinking about content, if you're into scaling your brand, if you want to create buzz about any previous success or you want to create success, chat to us. Ask us the hard questions. I'm not a oil snake salesperson. I truly believe we have changed the game a little bit. We have solved for a lot of problems that brands and publishers feel. Just come and chat to us and ask us the hard questions and see what you think. We are very open to feedback at all times.
All right, folks, you heard it. You're getting to get a sweet deal if you go over to linkby.com and mention the Startup Savant podcast. But that is going to be pretty much it. And we are going to put all of the things that you've heard today in the show notes over at startupsavant.com/podcast. We'll put a link to Linkby and everything else you heard today. Adrian, would you like the final word?
I just want to say thank you, Ethan. I do a few of these podcasts, but this one has been really great. You're extremely professional.
Hey.
And you really had you really excel at this game. When I love to talk to people that excel at wherever they're doing. So I really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, I'm blushing, but I hope that the editors allow me to keep this in because it makes me feel real good.
We should.
All right, Adrian, thank you so much. And we will catch you next time.
Thanks so much, Ethan. Really appreciate it.
The Startup Savant podcast is produced by Truick.